All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Discovering Multifamily podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Scandariato, here with Red Knight Properties. And today we have a special guest here with us, Charlie Hardage. And Charlie has a lot of experience in the corporate world. He's worked in the corporate world for over 12 years in IT. And he comes from a unique background because he did transition from IT sales. He was also in the U.S. Army. He spent 5 years there with two deployments in Afghanistan. So obviously retired from there. So definitely want to hear his experience with that. And he's been investing in real estate since 2017, primarily multifamily. And he has about a little bit over 1,000 doors across 6 different properties. He's the co-founder of H&K Investment Group. So today we're going to talk about his mindset from the army and how that applies to building teams and investing in multifamily real estate. So really excited to have him on the show.
Yeah, Anthony, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Great. So yeah, talk about how did you find real estate? I mean, you were in IT sales, you worked for different names like Google and Dell, and like how did you find real estate? And obviously, you were in the army, so just how did you stumble across real estate?
Yeah, I'll go back to when I was about 10 or 11 years old. My best friend's dad had his own company and multiple companies over the years. And whereas my dad had 2 master's degrees and kind of worked his way up, kind of like rich dad, poor dad, right? You have one guy who is focused on education and the career, and one that is focused on kind of building his own thing. And that, when I was young, that lit a fire under me a little bit, I would say, just because he was always around. My friend's dad was always around, whereas my dad was working or traveling. And so that's where I started to become interested in something other than the norm, right? Other than the W-2. But I was 10, 11, didn't really know what a W-2 was. I just knew people went to work. Fast forward, I ended up going to college, ended up getting a degree, and worked in the corporate world for a couple years. But I had this kind of passion. I wanted to go into the military multiple times over the previous years. And after working at Dell for a couple years, I said, you know what? I'm not getting younger. I was about 25 and I went into the Army. And that was quite a experience. My first deployment was we hardly had internet or anything like that, so a lot going on. Second deployment was pretty chill. Had a ton of free time, and I did bring Rich Dad Poor Dad over with me, and I read that and I was hooked, man. I was completely hooked. Told my wife to send me a bunch more books, and she did. Took about a month to get over to me. And on my second deployment, I got shot. And, I had gone from IT sales. I'd been there a little over 2 years to the military. For me, military, I already had a degree. For me, military was a career move. It wasn't just I'll just do, 4 or 5 years and get out. It was a career move. And when I got shot and subsequently medically retired, I didn't have a choice. I couldn't stay in. And so I was like, man, what do I do? So I went back to, I was very interested in real estate because of that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Just had no idea what type of real estate. After I got out of the military, I went back to really the only thing I knew, which was IT sales. And, I didn't hate it, but wasn't overly passionate about it, but did that for a few years as I started learning more and more about multifamily and just real estate in general. And last year in 2022, I took the jump, quit my day job, and now I'm doing multifamily full time.
That's awesome. So what kind of multifamily properties are you focused on? And also, why did you choose multifamily?
I, man, I have listened to probably thousands of hours of podcasts and learn about all different types of things and in real estate. And I think the big thing that really got me in multifamily syndication was the fact that I could invest passively. And there's you get all the benefits of real estate in general, but then there's additional benefits in apartments like scaling and operating costs are lower per door. that those are great. But when I heard about the passive side of things, I was like, this can't be true. I'm not an expert in the market, in the economy either. And so it's just, to me, I'm like, man, this is amazing. I was really impacted big time because I felt like I was kind of lost, and I knew I didn't want to do IT forever. It was just you know, kind of a path to get me to be my own boss, have my own company. And when I could start investing passively, I just had, I mean, maybe sounds corny, but really just touched me. I'm like, man, this is amazing. And after I had a couple investments in the passive side, I was like, there's really more to this, and I can look to become active and help other people who maybe were like me, who wanted something other than a W-2 until they were 65 or 70 years old. Maybe they were kind of tired of the stock market and just wanted something else. And I know there's a lot of people, I've talked to probably hundreds of people that don't know how to get into real estate, and they've wanted to for years. And I think the passive side of things is so easy for them because they're able to invest in real estate without having to do any of the work while they learn, right? And if they want to become active, I love talking to people and just giving them my 2 cents. And just I'm so passionate about real estate, and I think multifamily syndication is just a phenomenal way to not only grow your wealth, but kind of dip your toe in the water because you can do it passively.
Yeah. So kind of going to your point of going from passive to active, and I'm sure you're still passive or looking for passive deals. How do you like, what role are you coming in as on the active side? Because obviously real estate is not an individual
Right.
sport, it's a team sport. And I'm sure you learn, you know, working with the team from your deployment. So like, how did that experience shape you into investing and kind of building your team out into investing?
Yeah, that's a great question because military and multifamily syndication, it's not a one person, it's a team. And one of the biggest, I think, lessons that I have learned from the military, and there's two of them, but the first one would be communication. Communication's key. In the military, it's life or death. In multifamily, it's not life or death, but it can truly make or break a property, a good property becoming great or a good property becoming terrible. The other lesson is just kind of stress. In the military, again, it is life or death, or it can be life or death. Don't want to be super dramatic there, but in multifamily, there's a lot that goes on, right? Tons of moving parts. And so, you just got to communicate, got to make sure everyone is okay doing their role. If they need help, try to help them out. In the multifamily space, I'm very analytical. I like to underwrite, like to come up with business plans. And in the IT world, I was a senior sales director, been in leadership positions in the corporate world and also in the military. And so I like to make sure that the team is just, everyone is kind of working well. And what's great about multifamily is, I'm not very organized personally, but guess what? I don't have to be the lead asset manager, right? We have people that are extremely organized that can do that. I'm great at spreadsheets, but not everyone likes spreadsheets. So I'm able to do that, and they can ask questions, about that. And we all just win as a team. So in the multifamily space, I like to underwrite, like to help come up with a business plan. And then I do for some of our for some of the deals that I'm a GP in, I have a presentation that shows, okay, this is what we projected, when we did our initial pitch deck to our investors, this is the goals that we projected at the end of 5 years. And then where are we today, right? And I know maybe we're only 2 years or 3 years through this holding period, but where are we? Are we on track? Are we below? Or are we above? And just kind of focus on the numbers. And because the asset managers, they kind of focus on the day-to-day, the week-to-week, and they're phenomenal at that. And I like to focus on the bigger picture as well, because I'm not organized, so I don't help very much with that day-to-day.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, again, a team sport that we all win.
Yeah, and it's good to know your role within that team, and you can add value through something that maybe somebody else is not that good at or somebody
Right.
doesn't want to do. So
Right.
that's awesome. I think you found your niche. And so you're based in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yep.
Where are your properties that you've, invested in or, um, looking to do moving forward?
Yeah. We have one about 30 minutes from me. There's one in Birmingham, which I think is about 3 hours, one in Augusta, Georgia, and then two in Texas. When I underwrite, I'm primarily looking in Tennessee. I will go usually within a 3 hour drive. So that would include Louisville, Kentucky, Birmingham, Huntsville, and Atlanta as well. But I'm primarily focused on Tennessee.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially, local is always the best if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so okay, so that's great. So in terms of um what you're working on moving forward, it seems like you're focused on the Tennessee market. You have a podcast as well, correct?
I do. Yeah. It's called Passive Investors Playbook. And, you know, I think something that I had spoken, I mentioned this earlier, Anthony, about, probably hundreds of people I've talked to that they're like, I don't know how to get into real estate, but I want to. And again, going back to how much of an impact this had on me, because I grew up middle class and middle class mindset of work until I'm 65 to 70, and then, put money into a 401k. I never heard about really investing in real estate growing up, not let alone multifamily, but just investing in real estate. And so for me, when I was talking to the investors, I found out a lot of them are just like me. They don't know what else is out there. They know real estate's great, but they just don't know what or how to get in. And so I wanted to come up with a podcast where I could help my sphere of influence just kind of understand, more benefits of real estate, how they can grow their wealth passively, at least to start, right? And if they want to do this actively long term, great, that's awesome. And I hope that my podcast kind of helps them understand it a little more. But had some pretty good feedback, which really I didn't really do it for feedback or anything like that. Just wanted to kind of teach people and help them learn. And it's been a blessing to open up the podcast and have people just excited about it, really.
That's awesome. And where
Yeah.
can you find your podcast? Anywhere? iTunes?
Anywhere. Yeah, iTunes, Spotify, Apple, Google. It's on YouTube as well. So yeah, pretty much any major podcast platform.
Nice. That's awesome. Definitely gonna check it out. That's Passive Investors Playbook, correct?
Yep, comes out every Monday.
That's awesome. So what's next for you, Charlie? You mentioned you're looking at opportunities in Nashville. Any, long-term, goals or visions for H&K?
Yeah, what we found, especially right now, we're recording this in down market 2023.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of investors that have kind of been, I don't want to say sitting on the sidelines, but they're not looking for the 5 year hold. They're looking for more of a cash flow property, and that's hard to do with value add, which is what we primarily do. And so what we want to do in addition to value add is look for some more steady cash flow. Potentially there's some value add where instead of selling it, we do a cash out refinance. And our parents are older and they're looking for steady income. So they've not been able to invest with us because they don't want to take that risk or what they perceive as a risk of, all or nothing kind of. So looking for more steady cash flow from investment side of things. Ultimately we want to hire a team. We would like marketing and a full-time underwriter and full-time asset managers and things like that. But right now just trying to get more of a base and more of an understanding on other markets that I kind of mentioned, like Louisville and Huntsville, Birmingham, just to kind of expand, because Nashville's great. It's phenomenal, and Tennessee's great. Knoxville's a really good area as well. But really just trying to expand a little bit more.
Nice. That's awesome. It sounds like some good things are on the horizon for you, Charlie.
Yeah.
And how can my audience find you, learn more about you, connect with you?
Yeah. Best place to reach me is the website, hkigllc.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. And obviously the podcast, Past Investors Playbook.
Awesome. And for my audience, if you liked what you heard and or saw today, please give us a rating and review on iTunes. It would help our message and Charlie's message get out to a greater audience. That's just the way the algorithm works. So we would really appreciate that. And we'll have a link to Charlie's website as well as his social media he just described in our social media descriptions and on iTunes as well. So definitely give him a like and or follow or connect with him. So really appreciate your time today, Charlie, and talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.